Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here this week with Eitan, and we are thrilled to be able to discuss with you and each other how to see things as they truly are. This is one of the most perfect weeks of the year to reassess our opportunities for shifting perspectives, our belief systems around what should and shouldn't be, and what's happening in our reality, as well as to tap into our deeper sense of sight, which has nothing to do with our eyes. And we'll talk more about that in this week's episode. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where we provide our listeners with the most powerful and practical tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that by gleaning through the wisdom of Kabbalah and pulling the most profound and practical teachings and tools to share with you. So every episode ends up revealing not only tools and techniques you can use this week, but really wisdom that you can use any week of the year. And as we segue from the month of Leo, which we've been both enjoying and also waiting for it to end, this week we move into Virgo energy, which is very distinct and different from the energy of Leo, and we'll talk about that as well. But whenever we come to this time of year, where we're really segueing into the preparation for the energy of the coming year, and we begin to put on our, I would say, reflective gear, how to reflect on the past year so as to have a dramatically better year next year, we always enter this conversation of vision, sight, perspective shifts in this specific week. And I've never been able to have this conversation on Weekly Energy Boost with Eitan in this timing. So I'm really looking forward to his insights. But I can share with you just out the bat that one of the first things we teach in Kabbalah 1, which is coming up, and we can talk to you about that as well. One of the first things we teach in Kabbalah 1 is the very illusionary nature of our five senses. That part of the contract that humanity created with the creator, with the universe, is that our senses are actually going to be an opportunity for us to not believe them, not give in to them, not allow them to rule us. And at the same time, where we live in a world where everything is about proof and studies and statistics and analysis, and we're constantly being fed every second of the day millions of bits of information from our five senses. So I think that one of the best places to start, and the reason why we bring the five senses even into those initial classes when we start teaching Kabbalah, is how do we even teach ourselves not to give in, not to believe, not to allow our five senses, and specifically the way that we see things, to control how we experience reality? That's a question.
So first, I think one of the in the portion that from the Torah that relates to the energy of this week, like you said, Elisheva, it says the word re'eh, see. I gave in front of you blessings and curses. And it's a strange verse. What is actually the secret behind it? That bad things or good things that happening in our life, blessing and curses, it's only dependent on how we see things. And that's our intention today in this discussion, really to awaken our consciousness to realize reality, it's not what you see. In every given moment, there are two realities. The reality, if I'm able to see through the real reality, which is situations, relationships, things that are happening in our life, feelings, that has only one purpose behind it, to elevate me and everybody around me. There's another reality. The things are bad. Things are bringing me down. But what's the main thing we're going to talk today? It is up to us, and it starts with our eyes. How we see things will determine if it's a blessing or if it's a curse. So I think the first point, what Elisheva you said in Kabbalah 1, one of the main principles we're teaching is don't believe what you see. So the mere fact, right after you see something, ask yourself, is it really what's going on? Because whenever we see something, we see someone. I just got a text from someone today. I saw the text and I already decided, based on what I saw, that that person is judgmental. And only after I shifted something in my seeing, which we'll speak about the tools, somehow then I spoke with that person and I saw completely different reality. So imagine every time you see something and you jump to conclusion based on what you see, you start to train yourself 1 second. The fact that I see it this way, perceive it this way, doesn't mean this is the true reality. That's step number 1. It's like Elisheva and I spoke before, and one of the things that Michael Berg quoted before from science, from quantum physics, it's basically one of the interesting things about in the past, they thought the way the physical light is extended is as particles. Then they realize it's actually waves. And then they realize, based on the expectations of the researcher, light will be one time appear as particles and one time as waves. How is it possible? It's either waves or particles. It's two separated and different frequencies and energies all together with different nature and characteristic. Even science tells us, based on what I want to see, not just seeing, based on what I want to see, it will affect what I see, it will affect what I believe, it will affect the picture that I have, it will affect my consciousness, it will affect my reactions, and so on.
But Eitan, 1 second. I'm hearing you, and this is a topic that fascinates me personally by itself. I'm sure we have people that are listening to what you're saying and agreeing with you and with quantum physics in theory. But there's so many things that a human being can go through, even just looking out in the world today, that are intrinsically bad. People murdering, hurting, dying, sickness, loss, famine. How is it possible to look, and not even with our eyes, but how is it possible to perceive things that feel and appear genuinely negative? How can we perceive them as something positive?
It's a very good question. If it's personal challenges or things that we see out there in the world, how do you change that? How do you see it as positive? That's what you're asking.
Right.
There's some objective bad stuff. You go to a doctor and God forbid the doctor has diagnosis that that's what's happening to you. It's a disease and it sounds actually bad. So it's all gone back to the original consciousness of what's presenting our life. What is actually presenting challenges in life? What is the force that from that force everything is presented in our life? The light of the Creator. What is the intention and the nature of the light of the Creator? To elevate us. To elevate us. I'm not suggesting to be in denial that this sickness really exists. I'm not suggesting to be in denial that actually I got fired from the job. I'm not suggesting to be in denial I just lost money in investment. I'm not suggesting to be in denial that someone just hurt me and they acted inappropriately. Sometimes that's the reality. But am I seeing with the eyes of it's bad? What do you mean bad? Bad means I'm going down. Bad means there's no order in my life. Bad means there's no force of safety they're trying to elevate me. That's bad. So if I'm just looking at the external things that are happening and I'm not seeing the depth of really what happened, what drives that? The internal thing. What drives everything is one thing, the desire of the universe, of the light, to elevate us. And if I'm fighting, yes, it's painful, but there's intelligent within what I just happened is to elevate me, to elevate us. So that change, it's bad or it's opportunity to elevate. That's two types of perception that can change everything. That's what the beginning is. Because when we look at things externally, that's the problem. We look at the external shell. Our five senses, our ego just look at the external. When we look at the external, that's what we see. It's either good or bad, because we all have in every present moment certain expectation for something to happen, and we all have our own limited definition what is good and what is bad. And whenever something is going against our definition, it's either bad or good. It's a blessing or it's a curse. What the Kabbalah is saying is, it's up to us to see and to seek to see deeper. First, to decide that that's what I want. Everything starts with desire. To decide that I want to see that what's happening here is for the sake of elevating me. It is a blessing. Blessing means I'm ascending. To where? I don't know. Up.
To me, it's always interesting too that spirituality comes with a concept, right? Kabbalah, as you mentioned before, the Old Testament is thousands and thousands of years old, and science is now backing up what the Kabbalists or what the sages since the beginning of time have used as a fundamental basis for spirituality. Even we share sometimes in the classes, there's a Chinese like folk tale about a farmer this horse wanders onto his property and can help him with his planting and harvest. And all of the neighbors say, wow, you're so lucky you have help to do all this work. And the farmer says, maybe. A few weeks later, they're working the land and the horse kicks the farmer's son and breaks both of his son's legs. And the neighbors all gather around and say, oh, such a tragedy. Your son is suffering so much. And the farmer looks at them and says, maybe. A few weeks later, war breaks out in the land and they come to enlist all of the able-bodied young men to go to battle. And the farmer's son can't go to battle because both his legs are broken. And the neighbors gather around and say, oh, how fortunate you are. Your son doesn't have to go and risk his life. And the farmer says, maybe. And the story goes on and on and on, really showing us, again, another perspective of what we see is never the whole picture. And the concept, the idea, the teaching that gives me so much strength when I see something that naturally, right, or as you said, objectively looks bad or feels difficult or painful, is the teaching or the knowledge that my soul sees from the beginning of time to the end of time. That within me, not that it's a level I have to achieve, but it's a resource that exists within me that has that knowledge, that is at peace, that sees the inherent goodness in everything and the force behind everything. And if I can tap into my soul in that moment where I see something that is, or I perceive that something is bad or negative, I have already within me that resource to know that even though right now it feels terrible or it looks dreadful, there is something much bigger and better behind it. And it's simply a snapshot in a movie that extends not only decades, but lifetimes. So there is a certain comfort in realizing that there's only I'm only perceiving in that moment that negativity is only a thin slice of the reality. And the more that I hold on to that consciousness, which is where the work is for sure, the more insight I can receive into the divine goodness. And it can be everything, bad, of course, is relative, but, something doesn't go, many times you hear these days, trips get canceled, people end up having to stay or be in places they don't want to be in and things like that. The mere, it didn't go according to your plan, that trip, but the fact that you're where you are means there's something for you to do there. And to, rather than throwing the tantrum that you're not where you wanted to be or where you were supposed to be, but tapping into the infinite wisdom that exists within each one of us, that there's a reason I'm here. And to be curious and interested in why the universe orchestrated a flight delay or cancellation to keep me where I am, or to prevent me from going to where I thought I needed to be. The more we open ourselves up, and this is, I think, one of the biggest opportunities that this week provides us, is to open up our perspective, not only, like you said, black or white, it's good or bad, right? Oh, I see it's bad, now I need to shift into good, but to open our viewfinder to all the things that we don't see, all the moving pieces that we don't have access to in any given situation. And the more we acknowledge that vastness of the possibilities and the potentials of what's going on, the sooner we can access the reason I'm there, the purpose for the delay or the cancellation or the disappointment. Even the disappointment serves a purpose. And to really use the support of this week's energy to open my perspective up to, I think that all of us desire to have knowledge, to have clarity, to have certainty, to know, to feel connected to purpose and direction. It's as simple as opening up to other perspective, to other perceptions, that clarity can come about. And to me, it's always exciting to have an opportunity to do that and to level up in the way that I am open to see or to understand the inner workings of what's going on in my life.
I think it's beautiful. Karen Berg once said that the reason we have two eyes, because one eye is seeing through the soul, and the other eye see things through the limited me. So when you speak about perspective, Elisheva, basically just to give some tools to our audience, there are two major perspectives which will affect how I see things. Am I coming from soul perspective, or I'm coming from limited perspective in every given situation? So what does it mean? What does it mean practically? And there's different examples, the way we see ourselves, the way we see others, the way we experience and we see good things that are happening in our life, and the way that we see and dealing with challenges in our life. So basically, in all in the above, how do we actually look at these two perspectives? So basically, first, I think what you said is very important to know, that in every given situation, there's many more, but extreme two perspectives. Limited perspective and internal soulful perspective. So after you see something, right away, what does my soul see in this situation? Let's give examples. You made a mistake, you begin to judge yourself. And as you judge yourself, you are convinced what you've done is bad, and it caused so much judgment and movies and limitation about yourself. And you connect all the dots, because that's what happened with perception and with seeing. We start to connect the dots. That's the reason it happened. And so we see a picture. That's the time to pause and to say, what does my soul see? Just ask yourself this question, because our soul sees everything as opportunity to grow. What is my opportunity to grow? When I'm looking at myself, or when I'm looking at my mistakes, is it really about deciding I'm a bad and I'm going down and I'm a useless? And who knows what will happen, how I'll feel better again? Or is it right now opportunity to grow? That's the reason King David always said, one of the greatest spiritual person ever lived. He says, please, Creator, open my eyes that I can see the wonders, I can see the growth, I can see the light, I can see the opportunity. That's what our soul sees in every situation. Growth, opportunity to change, opportunity to give, opportunity to learn lessons, opportunity to connect. And it required tremendous effort when we see ourselves. When we judge someone, pause for a second. Pause for a second. They've done something wrong. But is that who they are? That's their essence. We spoke about it previously in the other episode. Is that really who they are? It's a mistake. It's not their true essence. Do you want to decide they are bad? When I'm perceiving them that way, I'm putting them in the box, which actually eventually, what will happen? They're going to act in a way that they will support the box and the perception that I had about them. It's a fight for all of us. Please, I want to see the wonder. I want to see the bigger picture. I want to see how does it supposed to serve me to grow, to serve me to help someone. And sometimes the answer is, in the big picture, I don't need to be a friend of that person today. That's okay. Sometimes we are blind. I know a person that was wonderful spiritual person. But she had issues with the eyes and she didn't know why. And she actually started to get blind in one eye. And we didn't know why. She tried everything, meditation, prayers. And eventually she realized she subconsciously chose to be blind about the fact that her husband is not really loyal to her. He was cheating on her.
Wow.
She had she didn't want to see. She was afraid. She was afraid to face reality, and she's afraid to actually grow from that situation. No, I'd rather see all the good. That's not necessarily soulful seeing. Soulful seeing is what really will help me to grow. Not being in denial. See only the good. Some of you might have tikkuns of choosing to see the good because you're afraid, or we're afraid to deal. Seeing what my soul sees, the true reality, the true opportunity to grow, to change. And of course, one of the indication it's coming from the right place. My seeing doesn't cause me to judge or to be angry or to be a victim or to blame or to separate. Allow me to become more internal.
Eitan used a word a minute ago, the word tikkun. That's one of our buzzwords in Kabbalah. That it's a word that we use to describe an opportunity for us to grow or to transform, to elevate, to heal. And sometimes, as he was saying, sometimes it's an opportunity. A person comes into a particular lifetime to work on not only seeing the good, but sometimes even seeing the truth, right? Not allowing the optimism or the naivete to prevent us from seeing what's really there. And I believe that working on our tikkun, and what I've seen in my experience in teaching Kabbalah all these years, is that this kind of work doesn't work only when things are dramatic, are serious. To really see a transformation in your perspective requires consistent work, and it starts on the small things. So I invite everyone this week to start to shift their perspectives, not on that relationship was a mistake. Oh, now I need to look at it as an opportunity. Yes, that's also recommended, but start to look at the small things. Like we began with a email, with news that you don't really want, or plans being canceled, or traffic on the highway, or sometimes you even, you see somebody on the street and you start to get into a story about they shouldn't be there. Why are they doing that? Use those small moments to train yourself to train your consciousness to take over and say, wait a second, I don't see the whole picture. I don't even see a little piece of the picture here. Or I can't wait to see what's behind this, to begin to use whatever language, whatever wording works for you. And that's one of the reasons we say it in so many different ways. How can you begin to shift your perspective on the small things? Because that strengthens your muscle so that when the bigger opportunities come, it's easier for you. You've already trained your brain to shift into a light-minded perspective. And I mentioned before, one of the things that helps really to cement these practices that we talk about every week on Weekly Energy Boost, one of the most powerful ways, if not the most powerful way to do that, is to take the Kabbalah One course. And it's not every day, not every week, not every month that Eitan and I get to do this together. So we wanted to make sure that our listeners know on Monday, September 9th at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, we are starting a new Kabbalah One course. It's a 10-week course. It takes all the things that you hear us talking about every week to a deep level, to a level of practice, to a level of internalization that we don't have the opportunity to go to every week on the podcast, nor is it really the platform. And part of what we support you with is discussion groups, workshops, interactive experiences. It's all on Zoom, so you can join no matter where you are. If the time zone doesn't work out for you, you can also receive the recordings and participate. We have online discussions and really, really powerful ways to support you. I mean, Eitan, this particular idea of shifting perspectives, it's one of the first things we work on in Kabbalah One because it is so fundamental.
One of the most challenging working with people for many years, one of the most challenging things for people is to actually realize, number one, that their perspective creating their reality. And number two, that we have a choice about changing my perspective. And one of the most empowering thing about Kabbalah One, which the first class, for example, how to change perspective when you face challenges. So one of the most powerful things is about empowering us to realize, wow, it's up to me. My childhood, my traumas, it's based on how I see it, if it's a bad thing or it's a blessing. Everything in my life depends on my perspective. Reality, it's not what you externally see. You can make it a reality, but we choose Kabbalistically to connect with the real reality. And you know what's the real reality? The universe watching our back. Everything that's happening in our life has intention and desire to give to us, to protect us, to elevate us. So that's empowering. For me, the Kabbalah One course, the 10-week course, it's really understanding the laws of the game of life. what life really is all about. It's not just about finding beautiful spiritual self-help tools out to feel good for a moment. It's more about, what is my purpose? How do I connect to my true potential and begin to express it? How do I connect the dots with all the challenges that I have and the gifts that I have and the talents that I have and how I'm supposed to express them? How do I begin to start to attract magic into my life? We're supposed to live a magical life. Magic means, like Elisheva said, based on connecting to the concept of seeing, is I don't know, I don't see the whole picture, but I know there's magic available here. And when you're truly open, you'll allow the magic in.
It's one of the things I look most forward to in the work that we do in sharing the wisdom of Kabbalah, and I hope that as many of you that can join do. It's all the information is available in the show notes on weeklyenergyboost.com. And, if you're listening on any other platform, you can message us and we'll send you the link. We look forward not only, I think one of the great things is on the podcast, it's one way. We talk, we don't know who's listening, but in Kabbalah One, there's interaction. We get to know the students in the class, and as much as you're willing to share, of course. And we continue with level 2, level 3, and on. So if you're interested in beginning a more consistent journey with what you've been listening, it couldn't be a better time. Monday, September 9th at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. As always, you can find Weekly Energy Boost on all podcast platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Visit our website for that link, as well as information on all the other things we think are interesting and important for our listeners to know. Click the donate button to support this podcast, as well as, and this especially I think, this being one of the most fundamental teachings that exists in the wisdom of Kabbalah. The more you share this episode with the people around you, the better the world is going to be for it. And we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.